Good day, everyone. I am Crizel Joy B. Diquito of Group 1. Together with me is Ms. Manal Ubinay, and we will discuss the topic Emerging Responses to Calls for Global Food Security. So, because of the rise in food costs that took place in 2007 to 2008, global food security is now a top priority for governments, international organizations, regional organizations, non-governmental organizations, and a wide range of hosts and other actors around the world. The current conversation or this discourse on food security is motivated by the definition of the idea as it is officially understood by the Food and Agriculture Organization. So it keeps revolving primarily around the notion or the concept that increasing food production is the key to ending world hunger. So it keeps revolving primarily around the notion or the concept that increasing food production is the key to ending world hunger and malnutrition, and it continues to dominate the discussion. So according to this perspective, or according to this view, emerging countries need to increase farm productivity, mostly through the adoption of enhanced technologies, such as biotechnology and better development infrastructure, both of which call for increased investment.
Assalamualaikum, I am Ubinay Manal, and to continue the discussion on the response to the global crisis, the developing countries need to grow foods by raising farm productivity and such, which was mentioned earlier, which lead to them bidding higher investments. So these developing countries will invest greater to the private sectors or private public partnerships in return to them helping them increase their farm productivity. So these private sectors or private public partnerships may be through agribusinesses, multinational corporations, private donors, or microfinance. Another thing, for the smallholders from the developing countries, for them to benefit from higher global food prices, they need to integrate or venture from national to global markets. As well as they need to have a freer agricultural trade across state borders, but in return, they have to lower their trade barriers and aversion to what is viewed as protectionism on behalf of the latter in general.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Muhammad Saim Zaman Haj Jamel, and this is my part on the report on the regional and global initiatives on food security. So, there are four regional and global initiatives that was given on the um, lecture. First is the Aquila Joint Statement, the Global Agricultural and Food Security Program, the New Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition, and the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. So the Aquila Joint Statement was at the 2009 Aquila Summit. For example, the G8 countries released a strong statement on the need to tackle global food insecurity in a comprehensive and sustainable manner. The statement, supported by a number of other countries and international organizations, called for increased agriculture productivity, stimulus to pre and post harvest interventions, emphasis on private sector growth, smallholders, women, and families, preservation of the natural resource base, expansion of employment and decent work opportunities, knowledge and training, increased trade flows, and support for good governance and policy for reforms. The other one is the Global Agricultural and Food Security Program, in which in September 2009, the G20 called upon the World Bank to create a new multilateral trust fund to facilitate the implementation of a pledge of 20 billion US dollars to scale up agricultural assistance in developing countries along these lines. This led to the creation of the ASED GAFSP under the Leakil Food Security Initiative. Another is the New Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition, in which in 2012 the New Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition was launched by the G8 in partnership with several African countries and private actors as the next phase of the AFSA. The initiative includes over 45 multinational and African companies that have committed to the agricultural investments in Africa in excess of 3 billion US dollars over a period of 10 years targeted along the agricultural value chain. The last one is the AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, in which it was launched on 2008 and also geared towards the boosting of agricultural productivity in Africa using a market-centric approach. This was co-founded by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The AGRA also received funding from several countries such as the UK, African Union member states, and is supported by agricultural research organizations, private companies, civil society actors, farmers, and other rural development stakeholders to significantly and sustainably improve the productivity and income of resources of poor farmers in Africa. So there are also regional initiatives on food securities in the Philippines, such as the ASEAN Integrated Food Security Framework, the National Food Policy, Philippine Rice Research Institution, and the Mindanao Sustainable Agrarian and Agriculture Development Project.
Good day and Assalamualaikum everyone. I will be discussing my assigned topic, which is official approach on food security. Food security is an important issue that has been addressed by various official approaches over time. The understanding of food security has evolved and there has been a shift towards a more holistic approach that considers environmental, social, and economic factors. There are many official approaches to food security, and one of these is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDG. The SDG were officially adopted in the year 2015. It is a universal goal that has a set of 17 goals created to build on the successes of the previous Millennium Development Goal with a renewed focus on the sustainable development. The SDG cover a range of issues from poverty reduction to climate action and gender equality, but one of the most significant goals is Goal 2. End hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture by the year 2030. This goal recognizes that food security is essential for human development and calls for action to ensure that everyone has access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food all year. It also emphasizes the importance of sustainable agriculture, which involves producing food in a way that is environmentally sound, socially just, and economically viable. To achieve this goal, the SDG have established a set of targets and indicators to measure progress. These include reducing the number of people who suffers from hunger, increase agricultural productivity and income of small-scale farmers, and promoting sustainable land use and biodiversity.
What I'm going to discuss is all about national food policy and international agreements and initiatives. National food policy is a multi-sectoral policy and its coverage is national. Its goal is to ensure a dependable food security system for all people of the country at all times, and its main objectives are to ensure adequate and stable supply of safe and nutritious food, to enhance purchasing power of the people for increased food accessibility, and to ensure adequate nutrition for all, especially for women and children. The policy firstly focuses on food security and underlines that increased food availability and access to food may mitigate hunger. The nutritional status of vulnerable individuals has to be improved. It is essential that improved health and sanitation facilities are made available at the community level and be effectively brought to children, women, and other vulnerable household members. The policy also focuses on the need to ensure safe drinking water and improve sanitation against waterborne diseases, and sets forth that testing and control of water quality, health education, including proper child care practices, infrastructure development, are highly important. International agreement. is agreements concluded between states in written form and governed by international law, whether embodied in a single instrument or in two or more related instruments and whatever its particular designation. A treaty, the typical instrument of international relations, is defined by the 1969 Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties as an agreement concluded between states in written form and governed by international law, whether embodied in a single instrument or in two or more related instruments and whatever its particular destination. Contractual treaties are treaties by which the parties agree to exchange pieces of territory or settle a dispute or claims, that is, by which they deal with a particular kind of business. Lawmaking treaties which have grown tremendously in number and significance since World War II are instruments in which the parties formulate principles or detailed rules for their future conduct. Treaties, however, are not the only instrument by which international agreements are concluded. There are single instruments that lack the formality of a treaty, called Agreed Minute Memorandum of Agreement, or modus vivendi. There are formal single instruments called Convention, Agreement, Protocol, Declaration, Charter, Covenant, Pact, Statute, Final Act, and General Act.
Next is food sovereignty. As we know, sovereignty means own rules and policies. If individual has rights, food has sovereignty. Sovereignty refers to the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sensitive and sustainable methods, and the right to define their own food and agriculture system from Via Campesina 2007. It means that people in a community has the rights on what and how to produce their own food and control their own food systems. It should be culturally appropriate, for food has been a big part of our culture. Ecologically sensitive in a sense that they will also consider their environment and decision making when defining their own food. Use sustainable methods to sustain the needs of the community rather than the demands of markets and corporations that reduce food to internationally tradable commodities and components. Food commodity market in a way where the setting is fair prices for both farmers and consumers. Food sovereignty shifts the focus towards examining the root causes of hunger and malnourishment from a rights-based perspective. This global movement unites people to fight injustice in the food system.
Now this is the continuation of discussion about food sovereignty. So the concept of food sovereignty highlights the inadequacies of the current approach to food security. The International Assessment of Agricultural Knowledge, Science and Technology for Development report published in 2008 support the core arguments of food sovereignty. The report emphasized the multifunctional of agriculture, which not only provide food and other goods but also contribute to critical social, economic, cultural and ecological ends. The report acknowledged that agriculture provides services such as mitigating climate change, regulating water, controlling erosion, and supporting services such as soil formation and wildlife habitats. Additionally, the report recognizes the cultural significance of agriculture, including the use and preservation of landscape and spiritual sites. So the report challenges the market-centric approach to agriculture and calls for a multifunctional approach and prioritize the needs of small farmers and promote ecologically sustainability. This requires increased investment in agricultural knowledge, science, and technology, supporting the policies and institutions, and the evaluation of traditional and local knowledge. The report also emphasized the need to problematize the use of biotechnology and empower local communities to evaluate the different application of modern biotechnology specific to their local context. The capacity to undertake further research should sit at the community level with greater emphasis on participatory breeding project and agroecological practices. So overall, the idea of food sovereignty is to create more just and equitable food system that prioritizes the need and interests of people over those of large corporation and government. By empowering communities to take control of their own food system, food sovereignty can help ensure that everyone has access to healthy, culturally appropriate food that is produced in a way that is sustainable and equitable.